Good morning, everyone. All right, I had to figure out where my camera is. I just did a setup just recently. I kind of moved everything around. I have dual cameras here. I'm actually doing a standing desk. Pretty excited about it. So, hey, everyone, welcome. I'm your host, Jack Scott, for the Outpost Gray YouTube channel, which you are tuned into. So thank you so much for showing up live today. I am so thrilled about this session, but some really quick admin stuff. First off, want to apologize for starting a tad bit late. Some technical issues on my side, probably the setting up of the computer and everything. Wonderful morning. And then the other thing is we're gonna jump in and we're gonna hit this like really heavy deep dive into the branding because I've got to drop off in about 20 minutes. So I'm not gonna do too much of an intro. I'm gonna pull Audra on and we're gonna start talking. I apologize. I've got a medical appointment that got rescheduled on me. So I'm excited to actually go to that medical appointment, not have to wait 3 weeks. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on my dear friend, one of my best friends and the founder of Moov PR. She's an expert in branding of all things. And so today's episode, we're going to talk about branding in the digital space. So she is calling in, so she won't be on visual, but you'll get to see her beautiful headshot here. Audra, welcome to the show. How are you? How are you doing today?
Hi, Jax. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so thrilled to have you here. This is awesome. So in like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, can you tell all of the listeners, all the viewers a little bit about yourself and how you got into the PR space?
Sure. Yeah. So my background is in marketing and public relations. And prior to that, I was in broadcasting. But throughout my career, pretty much for the past decade in marketing and public relations, I've worked in different sectors from startup to nonprofit to corporate. And about 2.5 years ago, I started my own agency. And so we specialize in media relations, marketing, and branding. We primarily work with individuals and small businesses. So that's just a little snapshot of my background and what I've been recently doing.
Yeah, and you are kicking butt. Like you take companies from nothing to something. You're able to go in and really go in, sit down with them, figure out, okay, what type of product do you have and what is your niche? And that's what I really kind of want to talk with you about today, because some of the questions that I get is about branding, but not just branding. How do you brand in a particular space? Like, and we'll use a lot of the individuals that are watching today are in the cybersecurity, IT technology space. So I'm curious if you're working with somebody that's new in this space that maybe, let's talk about not somebody that's pivoting from a different brand, but somebody that has a completely clean slate. What are the first steps that they need to do when they're trying to create their brand in the digital space?
Yeah, I can talk specifically to, an individual maybe in the cybersecurity space that's looking to personal brand themselves or their business. I think what's really important is to ask yourself first and foremost, what makes you different? What makes you the expert? I'm not fully aware of what the cybersecurity roles are or, that industry. I know you are the expert in that. But, for example, if you're someone that works in a specific sector, are you an expert within that sector or within a different department within the sector that you're going to be relaying information to your audience? So I think first and foremost is what makes you different from other cybersecurity experts out there? What is your experience and what can you pull from your experience that you're going to be able to offer the audience that you're trying to engage with? So I think that's really important to make yourself different in the space, because there's so many people in so many different spaces and there's so many different experts out there. But what can you really find within the niche that you're in or the space that you're in or the experience that you have that really makes you stand out and will make people want to watch you, listen to you, and engage with you?
I think you nailed it. Figuring out how to make yourself different and leveraging your experience. So in your opinion, because there's cybersecurity, it's growing. There are a lot of individuals that are putting content out there. How can somebody go about and decide how they're different? Is it maybe tying in maybe one of their hobbies into what they do in the cybersecurity space? I know there's an individual that his name is Hector, and what he does is he ties fitness when he talks about cybersecurity. So can you provide like a little tips on how somebody could sit down and like, is it journaling? What do they need to do to figure out how is Jax different from the rest of the people in my industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to really kind of take a look at your experience, but also your personal story, right? And then what you're doing today. Like if you're someone that works in, the government space, and you're really able to kind of speak to cybersecurity on that level, then pull yourself out as an expert with that experience and make yourself different from someone who may be, working in cybersecurity in a different sector. For example, I think once you build your audience, it's great to engage with them on a personal level and maybe tell a little more about your story as to why you got, excuse me, why you got into cybersecurity, why you're doing what you're doing today, and excuse me, and really using that to build that relationship with your digital audience.
I love that. Okay, so we're going to pivot a little bit and let's talk about branding from the space of somebody already has a brand. Audra, you've known me. Audra's known me since 2008, and she definitely has some dirt on me, but she signed a friend DA and she won't share it with you. But she has definitely seen where I've come from to where I'm at. And it's, there's definitely been a lot of failures along the way. However, I did a really hard pivot from being seen. I used to own a gun company. So I used to teach people how to do defensive shooting, hand-to-hand combat. I did active shooter training for organizations. I had a firearms license. That was my niche. So for me, pivoting was actually harder than creating a clean slate. And if anybody's read our book, the Cybersecurity Career Master Plan, I wrote the section about branding, and I was talking about having a clean slate versus pivoting. And so Audra, like you have a lot of clients. Some of them, I feel like most of them already have a brand, and you're helping them kind of either pivot it into a better niche or refine it. What would you say to the individuals that are on here now that have a similar background of where I've come from, of being in one specific space, and now they're really trying to pivot and create that new brand? What are some best approaches, best steps, tips and tricks that they can do to help them pivot into that new space?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost is really being able to kind of tell your story about the experience you've had, and then using that as a platform to pivot yourself, right? Into, you went from military to owning a gun company, women empowerment, and then now cybersecurity. All of that kind of goes with you, right? It's about who you are. But I think it's really figuring out why you're now in the cybersecurity space, and taking that and using that as, part of your personal brand. And what are you offering to people? I think that's the biggest thing, is what's your messaging? How are you going to be used as a resource? What are you teaching people? And so, obviously you can take all of your experience and multiply it into what you're doing. But I think the biggest thing when you're pivoting is really being clear with your audience as to why you're doing what you're doing today,
Mm-hmm.
and why it's important to you, and what do you have to offer them. Why do people want to hear from you as an expert in your field, or in the sector that you're working in? So that's really important, is to just understand what you're offering to your audience and how you're going to offer it, when you're pivoting from, one career or one business to the next.
I like what you said about the intention, about the content you're putting out there. Daniel Hall wants to tell you, you guys need to connect, by the way. Great guy. Definitely should connect with them. And Neil, great seeing you in the audience, by the way. Love that you took the time and popped in here. So intention, I think that is critical. I want to touch on that a little bit more, because the intention and being consistent is so critical when you're building a brand. You hear a lot of different things, like you need to post 3 times a week on LinkedIn, or you need to do 1 a day on TikTok, things like that. But I really think it's about more of, you do need to have consistency in your post, but I think it's quality versus quantity. However, you need to like for Outpost Gray, we do one episode a week and it's on Thursdays, and it's very focused and it's a very driven mission with Outpost Gray. What are your thoughts on how individuals can become more intentional in either creating a new brand or pivoting their brand? Is there a couple of things that they can do now to start help forming that new brand for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, you know, kind of going back to what I've been talking about this morning is first and foremost, try to find what makes you different. Why are you the expert in what you're wanting to offer to your audience? And then define your audience. Who is it that you really are talking to? Is it people that are wanting to get into the cybersecurity space like you, Jax? Or is it people who are already seasoned in their profession? Are you going to really deep dive into some, you know, critical topics within your industry with people that really know what you're talking about? So I think really defining your audience is important. And then from there, you can kind of figure out what platforms are really going to work for you when it comes to your brand or your personal brand. Not every brand or every person is going to be a fit for TikTok. Not every brand or every person is going to be a fit for Instagram. So I think it's really finding what platform works for you. And then, as Jack said, being consistent and coming up with a strategy. If you're able to post quality content once a day or once every other day, do it and then keep doing it. And
Mm-hmm.
then assess the data and figure out when is my audience best engaging with the posts that I'm putting out there. So it's not just a simple formula for every brand or every, you know, expert who's trying to build a personal brand out there. It really takes some testing and it takes patience and it takes a lot of consistency. And you really have to find what works for you because your audience may not be the type of audience that wants to see 8 to 10 posts a day. They may
Yeah.
not be that type of audience. So I think it's just really, you know, getting started and getting your feet wet and then really assessing it along the way.
Yeah, it does. It takes and Stefan said something. I pulled up he made a comment. He said, creating a brand is very useful. I'm from the mountains and I didn't like to be in the public, but it was my only chance to get a job. It's really powerful, but it takes a lot of time and effort. And the last part, I think that's critical to understand is a brand, depending on where you're wanting to take it and the levels that you're wanting to take it, is going to be time consuming because you're a creator, you're a content creator, you're putting content out there for individuals to ingest. And Audra, I want to touch on this, something you said. Know the platform. For me, it's LinkedIn and it turned into YouTube. I never thought I was going to be on YouTube, but it's starting to work well for me. I can stream on other platforms. But you and I have talked about getting me on TikTok. I'm like quasi on there. I'm like dipping my toes in it. But it's not something that I'm passionate about yet. So I'm passionate about LinkedIn and YouTube. Therefore, it's easier for me to put content out there. And then you were talking about consistency. For me and my workload, one time a week. And I do other posts on LinkedIn. I try to do it daily, but one time a week, I do something on YouTube that works for me. So just going back to what Audra said, just make sure you find a platform that works for you. In the book, I even talked about picking one platform and using that one and leveraging that one and growing your following before you start expanding into another. So don't try to like extend yourself and press out too much too fast, because you're not going to be be reaching your community in the best way possible. And another thing I want to pivot a little bit, Audra, is talk about like personality types from something Stefan said. We get a lot of introverts in this space, and that can be very hard when you're wanting to put yourself out there, especially on the camera. So what are some tips and tricks that maybe some of these introverts can do to start putting content out there? Maybe it's a blog, maybe it's writing more, maybe it's TikTok, that they can start doing to start helping them create their brand without being like right in the camera face.
Sure. Yeah. You know, I mean, I think if you speak to most social media strategists or people that are in the social space, they will say that video, right, does
Mhm.
get probably 90% plus engagement from anything else you're going to post, right? But not everybody has the personality to be comfortable enough to be on camera or to, you know, even do audio. And that's okay. I think what you just have to find is if you're going to do a post, what type of post is it going to be? Is it a graphic with, you know, tips or facts or resources. I think you just really have to kind of think about what information are you wanting to give to your audience and what's the best way to relay that information to your audience, right? And it really just depends on yourself. And then it really depends on what platform you choose to do it on. Instagram is a great place if you're going to do, more so graphics than obviously TikTok, because TikTok video is going to be, more widely used on that platform. So maybe TikTok is just not the platform for you.
Mhm.
So I think that you just have to kind of assess, what you're comfortable doing, what platform may be the best fit for you, and then creating the content from there.
I love that. I love that. Okay, we've got some questions coming in. So we're gonna start going through this. So Michael Taylor, he said, I'm 34 and wanting to transfer from being a federal employee to cybersecurity, but I don't really know how to brand myself. How much would that affect my ability to get into the cybersecurity space? Meaning his ability, if he didn't brand himself or he wasn't good at it, to get into the cybersecurity space. And you could probably answer this from really any space, taking out like cybersecurity, like if somebody's trying to pivot into a new space, how is that going to impact them if they're unable to brand themselves well?
Yeah, I think it really just depends on, how much you want to put yourself out there, right? I pivoted from broadcast journalism into marketing and PR without really a personal brand until I started my own company.
Mm-hmm.
Your experience really speaks for itself. And I think that goes back to, making sure you're on LinkedIn, your LinkedIn page is up to date, your resume is up to date, maybe working with either a resume writer or career coach that can kind of help you with the verbiage on your resume, making sure that you're, applying the experience that you've had in the past to your new career now, and the skills that you've gained from your past career. Not everyone, I believe, needs to necessarily put out a personal brand or a public personal brand in order to get a job or in order to change their career. I think it just depends on what your goals are with, venturing into that new space.
I love that. Yep. Nailed it. Okay, next question. Neil Bridges. All right. 100%. He says this message on branding. Some upcomers fight imposter syndrome. So true. When it comes to doing content for their brand, do you have suggestions for how to just do it? Basically, getting out of your way. We've talked about imposter syndrome before, Audra.
Yeah, we have. And, I'm going to kind of throw this one back at Jax because I know that, she's gone through this as well. And, has had to fight it even with TikTok. I, have kind of talked with her about, she's got the personality for TikTok and she just needs to kind of start doing it and exploring with it and seeing what she's comfortable with. And I see that you are doing it. So I'm going to just throw this question kind of back at you, is what kind of made you just do it and go for it?
Neil Bridges, actually. So, and he is a big component, and so are you, Audra, because you're one of those people that's incessant. When you believe and you see a quality in somebody, you push and you push, and you do it in a nice way. You're like, hey, I should think about TikTok. You even mentioned it about Clubhouse, and it was you. It was another individual. Everybody knows him, Gerald Auger, that had mentioned that I do something on the social, but it wasn't until Neil gave me a challenge and he said, I'm going to Black Hat and I want to have a video before I get on the flight on Monday morning. And I did more than that. And then the next thing you know, here we are at this Outpost Gray YouTube, which is growing into an amazing community I would have never thought possible. And because of that step, Audra, I am now like, YOLO, I'll just do TikTok. And yeah, is there some nervous there? Absolutely. But how I have faced my fears is I recognize that I have the fear. I don't just push it aside. I recognize it. I openly talk about it to my trust circle. And then I just go ahead and lean into it because I know for a fact that if I lean into it, eventually that fear will subside and it will get easier and I will get more comfortable. So anybody that's facing imposter syndrome and fear, get your trust circle, recognize the fear and then just lean into it. Just do it. YOLO. That's what I always say. That's my saying now. YOLO, just figure it out. We have another amazing question from Jess. Welcome, Jess. Always love seeing you in here. How do you brand yourself without, I love this, without shooting yourself in the foot? I don't have the XP to get into the experience to get into cybersecurity, but the career change makes employers too nervous to hire. So she's really wanting to know, like, how do you put content out there without shooting yourself in the foot? What's your best approach in it?
Well, I would suggest, obviously, LinkedIn is a great platform, especially for your guys' industry, right? Cybersecurity. And I know that you've had great success with LinkedIn, Jax. And I would just really say, really look at the skills that you've had in the past and how you can really apply that to this new career that you want to venture into. And then, really talking to recruiters and talking to people in the space, finding a mentor in the cybersecurity space, having them kind of walk you through things. I know Jax is someone that does that for a lot of people and fellow colleagues as well that have kind of ventured in cybersecurity. And really just being able to sell yourself as to how you might be able to kind of get into the industry, whether it's an entry level position or whatnot, or even a position that might kind of lead you into, getting your certifications or having those opportunities to then kind of slip into a new role within that industry.
100%. And I'm so sorry that my email is blowing up over here. It just keeps going. I'll mute next time, Audra. So, okay, I look like one more question, and then everybody, I'm going to have to hop off because my doctor appointment is right now and I still have to drive there. So YOLO. Okay. That was Neil. Sorry. We already went through that one. And we have one from Tom. I was like, I knew I saw you in there, Tom. Is it better time spent developing your brand or increasing your knowledge and skill base? Ooh, I love this. What do you think, Audra? Do you think that they should take a pause, maybe develop their knowledge and skill base before their brand, or the brand before that, or maybe both? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, when you're building your personal brand, you really don't have the brand if you don't have the knowledge and skills, because you are being looked at as an expert in your field. So I would take the time, to be honest, you can't put the cart before the horse, right? To really gain the knowledge and the skills, and also the confidence in yourself to be able to relay that information to your audience as an expert. And that takes, the knowledge and skills and experience to do that. So I would definitely take the time to do that before you build a brand, because if you build a brand and you have, no information, no content, no resources to put out there for your audience, you really don't have much.
100%. Yeah. And to find that expertise, because somebody posted this earlier, I can't remember who, but they were like, I'm not really an expert in anything. I promise you, you are. I used to say that same thing to Audra. I didn't feel like I was an expert in certain areas. That's where you talk to people that are in your circle, that you trust, that you look up to, and ask them for their advice. What are you good at? Maybe there's a skill set you're wanting to refine and become more of an expert in. Okay, that's understandable. Start digging into that. Start doing content around that. Basic content, basic understanding, because that'll help you become more of an expert, but it'll also let your community see that you're becoming an expert, or you are an expert in that field. So Audra, before we hop off, what are your last and final words? What would you like to leave and depart the viewers with around anything? It could be just a motivational quote or around branding, but what would you like to say?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, if you feel the push to create a personal brand and put it out there, I would definitely say to just have that confidence in yourself, especially with your knowledge and skills and the experience that you have. And, just go for it. Try it. Test things out. You are not going to get it perfect from the beginning. So, you know, brands develop over time, and we've seen this with tons of, you know, company brands, but also, you know, experts that are very seasoned in their fields. We've seen that over time with all of them. And so no one's going to get it right at first. And, you know, it's just a matter of putting your best foot forward, giving it a go, and kind of assessing from there, because you'll really figure out, you know, what your voice is, what messaging you're going to give to your audience, what platforms work the best for you, for the bandwidth that you have, the time that you have, what you're comfortable with. And it all kind of just starts clicking. And then once it starts clicking, consistency is really the key. And then you will start to see your platforms grow, more engagement. You're going to start building a community. And yeah, just, you know, really taking it off from there. So I would just say to have that confidence and just to go for it.
I love it. Well, we're going to have you back, Audra, so we can do another one maybe with, because she just came back from Disneyland, right? Disney World, Disneyland. I can't remember. One of the Disneys.
Universal.
Oh God, I wasn't even close. So she came back from Universal, all night drive back. She wasn't driving, but still so glad that you were able to make the call today, Audra. I'd love to have you back on the show so we can do an hour sesh, because I want to talk about how to create a community, why that's important, the engagement, what that really means. So you're amazing. I love you so much. Keep kicking butt, girl. Come back soon.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right, everyone. So really quick, first off, thank you all for hopping on in this live today. Sorry again that we're cutting it a little short. We will definitely be doing another one with Audra. She is fantastic. Make sure to reach out to her, find her on LinkedIn. She's tagged in all the posts. She's a great resource for branding. Just to remind you, we do episodes every Thursday. They are typically live. I'm doing live more often because it's just easier for me on the back end for editing. Next week, we're going to be going live. It's going to be our time of 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is going to be an amazing episode. It's with Elizabeth LaTorta, who is going to be talking about goals with noble purpose. She is a LinkedIn instructor. She's a consultant. She is just an amazing woman. And then following the next week, you guys will check out the media calendar. We've got Chip coming on. So we've got a great lineup for these next few weeks. Super excited about it. And as always, thank you all for the support. I love you. I love the community. You guys are the best. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Taking a chance.